So good morning and welcome to the future of multi-generational neighborhoods with the Agile Aging Alliance, ISO and AARP. This has been something of an adventure for all of us, pulling this together because the original intent had been to create a physical event. The Agile Aging Alliance, as many of you will know, organises something we call Congress every year. Generally, it's held at the NatWest Bank headquarters in London, and we'd planned to host our 6th annual Congress today, in fact. COVID-19 arrived, changed the rules for everybody. And so, long and short of it is, with support from our friends at Microsoft, we have been able to create this extraordinary gathering. When I say extraordinary, it's because we've got over 600 people on the Teams platform today. We've had to combine some new technologies, when I say we, Microsoft, in the process to make this work. So to some degree, we are making it up as we go along. So if there are some teething problems, please bear with us. And as long as we are not talking to ourselves while you're listening to something else, then everything will be okay, and we will introduce our fantastic speakers as we go along. So I would like to take a moment to introduce my co-hosts for today. I'd like to start with Nick Howell from NatWest. Nick, can we see you?
Good morning, everybody.
All right, and we have Nell Zvak from ISO. We also have Nathan Taylor from ISO, and I will let them introduce themselves and tell you what they do before we move on. So, Nick, I can't see you, but I'm pretty sure you are there in the mix. Hello, China. Welcome. Nick.
Yeah, morning.
Okay, well, we're looking for Nick. Let's start with Nell, because I can definitely see you there. Nell, please.
Hi, yeah. I think Nick is on the live event while we are on a slightly different page, so I think that will be sorted out very soon. But I'm Nell Scuff. I'm the committee manager for the International Committee on Aging Societies. I'll be doing a very brief introduction a little bit later on what the Aging Societies Committee is up to, together with Nathan.
Okay, and Nick, are you there?
I am here, but can anyone hear me?
Okay. Nick, if you can hear this, then you're on the wrong platform, as Nell said, and therefore you need to cross over. What I think we will do to set the scene is to kind of explain what the methodology is. There is methodology in what we are planning to do here today, and this is a process that we began a few years ago, in fact, working with the European Commission. And the idea is to engage with stakeholders across sector, across disciplines, and to build a knowledge base. In this particular case, the knowledge base is designed to inform the development of a new standard for multi-generational neighborhoods. I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment, but if we could just play that video, it's only 2 minutes just to set the scene. This day is a compendium of what we've been doing during the course of this year.
we've organised 10 roadshows across Europe, taking stock of the interests of stakeholders from different disciplines that are interested in age-friendly homes and housing. And we've been meeting with academics, we've been meeting with industrialists, SMEs, and people from local authorities, local government, national government, because we are working towards what the European Commission is calling a reference framework for age-friendly housing. With this project, we are sowing seeds. That's what we're doing. We're pulling the right people together with fertile imaginations, and we're throwing ideas out there, and it's up to them to take those ideas and see what happens. And then they feed back to us, and that's exactly what we saw today. You know, people feeding back bigger ideas than we shared, and then we'll take those bigger ideas and we'll move them out again. So it's a very organic process. It's a very rewarding process for those people that are within, because you can attend these kind of events. You get lots of talking heads saying the same thing, what we call the usual suspects. And what we've managed to achieve with this project is a lot of unusual suspects that are bringing fresh ideas to the space. And more importantly, we've got young unusual suspects that are coming in and saying, hey, we want to do something for our older selves. We're not talking about the elderly and them over there. We're talking about our futures. So we have to do something about it. And this is what we're willing to do.
I have to confess that Microsoft were reluctant for us to use video. They did suggest that with the number of people on this Teams call that it might buffer, and it did. They were absolutely right. But I wanted you to see that this is an ongoing process, that actually this is something that we began, and you are hopefully more unusual suspects. We cover so many countries with this particular proposition, and the idea is that we collectively will define what best practice is all about. It's easy to talk, but in reality, if ISO is thinking about creating an aging society standard that looks at age-friendly housing within multi-generational neighborhoods, what we want is examples of what works and what doesn't work, and this will be a 3-year process. And so this is the first gathering of people that will, we hope, get involved in this story, will actually contribute, and we'll tell you how you can do that as we move along. Now I think it would be appropriate, to say hello to Nick if he's there, but otherwise we'll go straight to Nell and Nathan to explain what the proposition is from an ISO perspective. So first of all, there is Nick. We failed
the first tech challenge, didn't I? But thank you everyone, and a real pleasure. It's a bit of a sort of sad time as well, because under normal circumstances we would be very much hosting at NatWest the 6th annual Agile Aging Congress at our London HQ, and I suppose it's sort of important to relay the reasons why NatWest would be and has been supporting the Neighbourhoods of the Future initiative since we first collaborated back in May 2015. There's 3 main reasons. So one is to collaborate with other experts, other participants, to do the right thing for our elder selves, for our loved ones, for friends in the wider society. Secondly, to differentiate ourselves in this space as being a financial services provider with a valuable ecosystem to really help innovate and support ambitious young businesses to grow and scale. But thirdly, also to identify innovations and ideas that we ourselves may be able to take to test for the benefit of our customers, staff, communities, so on and so forth. So we're actually sat in very highly unusual circumstances this year, given the pandemic. And I would suggest that actually this has rather started to lift the carpet under which much has been swept. We've made significant gains, which has grown the life expectancy of many of us as a population. However, it was also highlighted that our inability or refusal in some situations to address the needs of those of us experiencing extensive periods of physical and mental decline. With the words lockdown, unprecedented, isolation becoming so common in the media these days, it's really shone a spotlight on the age ghettos that now appear to serve as our only answer to those in physical or mental decline. But this is unsustainable. It's unsustainable both ethically and also financially. So a multi-generational neighbourhood for me is not only the answer, but it's a place where we abolish the ghettos based on our age or condition, and we start to see value and value our ageing society as a true asset. One of my favourite programmes, it's been repeated at the moment here in the UK on Channel 4, is a programme, The Old People's Home for 4-year-olds, where residents are brought together with 4-year-old toddlers, and they're kind of paired up in little groupings. And it's absolutely fascinating to see how much each party benefits, not only emotionally, but also in terms of friendship, in terms of entertainment, and especially for the older generation, in terms of physical abilities, which is absolutely fantastic. So I actually think that the Leaders Forum that we've got together here today is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to inform the development of what constitutes a multi-generational neighbourhood of the future, and a precious chance to globally recognise and kite mark what we as early collaborators can be early adopters for. So on behalf of NatWest, I'm looking forward to exploring how some of the agreed standards may be used to inform areas such as mortgage lending, property lending, support for entrepreneurs in this space. Reconfiguring our own property book may well be another angle for us to have a look at, as well as also perhaps consider any stakeholders who may not currently be at the table. So just in summary, the pandemic, it's a catalyst, it's a trigger for societal change. We're seeing and feeling the groundswell in the media and in the interests of this Leaders Forum. So it's our job to really join forces to collaborate that today brings. So let's get on with it, let's do what we can do, and let's really pull together for such an exciting venture. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks a lot, Nick. I think that's a NatWest logo you've got discreetly placed behind your head. Do you mind moving your head slightly so we can actually see it? You might as well. You've made the effort. No, move your head. There you go. Thank you very much. Nell, we're going to switch to you without a logo. Or are we going to go to Nathan?
Yeah, so Nathan and I have a few slides to make it a little bit easier to follow the train of thought that we had. So I'm first going to hand over to Nathan to start while we just wait for the slides to be brought up. Thank you.
Nathan, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be super.
Good morning, everyone from Switzerland. My name's Nathan Taylor. I'm the Technical Program Manager for ISO Technical Committee 314. It's part of a wider portfolio that I hold, but this is certainly, I come from a development and political economy background, so this is really an incredibly fascinating discussion. And I just wanted to perhaps just start by just giving a bit of an introduction to ISO and what we are and what our system represents. So I'm bringing this photograph up here. This is the first, what essentially was the first ISO General Assembly in 1947. And I think our system has come a long ways from really a initial focus on engineering topics to support international trade and support reconstruction following the war, to really our present formulation, where we have a much wider portfolio, and ISO standardization work touches a number of emerging cross-cutting social, economic, ecological, and managerial topics, and we really are taking an eye towards future innovation while remaining responsive to emerging needs of the market. But I think really the basic tenet of standardization, as we understand it, it is the activity of establishing, with regard to actual or potential problems, provisions for common and repeated use aimed at the achievement of the optimal degree of order in a given context. That remains even in this increasingly complex and interconnected world. And really, at the core of our work is stakeholder engagement, bringing a wide range of stakeholders into a conversation: consumers, government, civil society, academia, small and large business, is critically important for us to produce market-relevant standards. So before I continue, I just want to give a brief word of thanks to our ISO member for the United Kingdom, BSI, who's played a key role in bringing this event together, along with Agile Aging Alliance and NatWest. So really, thank you for being part of this global community of stakeholders. So just to give you a bit of a sense of just the scope of just moving forward here. Yeah, there we go. Just really the ISO community. We are a worldwide network of 164 national standardization bodies, and our work is facilitating the development of voluntary consensus-based standards, and we maintain a network of over 100,000 experts that have engaged in 2019 and almost 4,000 technical meetings, along with 1,100 virtual meetings last year, and that's certainly growing this year. But I think what's really important among our 248 active technical committees is that we really are touching on a growing diversity of topics that are accounting for a increasingly complex global marketplace. Now, one of the real benefits of the ISO system is we maintain mechanisms to establish liaison relationships with all of our almost 250 active technical committees. So this ensures that we maintain structures that allow for collaboration and joint work while avoiding overlap, duplication, and inconsistency. So if we look at the ISO TC 314, this committee has already established relationships with some 20 ISO committees representing IT, security, community infrastructure, human resources, and occupational safety, medical devices, financial services. So in addition to really the focused work that can take place within the committee, that's the topic of today's discussion, it's also important to appreciate that aging societies can be treated as a cross-cutting theme in other standardization committees, whether they're dealing with workplace, whether they're dealing with medical, social, or community settings, and really facilitating the development of market-relevant standards across the community. So I think obviously reflecting on what Nick had raised earlier, this is the pandemic has really exposed the lack of standards in facilities like long-term care facilities, and result in negative impacts in lives, health, and social inclusion. And this is an opportunity to mobilize expertise from around the world to identify what are those optimal degrees of order that would lessen the impact of these types of tragedies in the future. And I think I brought up just a couple of headlines from North America. And what really struck me is in a lot of these headlines, you see the word standards. So I think it's important that we think about how we, and then really when we go beyond the current issue, and I think it's important that we see ourselves working towards a wider development agenda looking at the UN SDGs. And this is really quite core to a lot of the work that we're doing in ISO as part of our 2030 strategy. So really this is representative of what is the global compact towards sustainable development to the year 2030. And aging societies and multi-generational communities is very much part of a wider global sustainable development agenda. And I think just as a few examples, and again, to really think about the work that that this stakeholder community can do to really promote a wider commitment to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So looking at issues of health and well-being, looking at safe and secure working environments for all workers regardless of age, economic and social inclusion and political inclusion regardless of age, accessibility and sustainable cities for older persons and persons with disabilities. So I just to really give an appreciation that there is a much wider global development agenda that you're contributing to, and that's really a lot of the work that we're doing in the Central Secretariat in Geneva, is really looking at how voluntary standards are contributing to the wider global development agenda. And just on that, in that respect, just to highlight a few key documents that I would encourage us to look at, looking at our standards around sustainable development, the ISO 26000 on social responsibility, ISO 37101 and 37120 on sustainable cities. So there's a lot of complementary work that is already going on, and that as the conversations here continue to evolve and really identify those best practices, there's already extensive standardization work that has been done that can really complement those efforts. So I will stop there, and then maybe if I can turn it over to Nelly, who will speak more specifically about the ISO Technical Committee 314.
Thank you very much. No? Yeah, thank you very much. So Nathan already touched on what ISO's role in this is, but I wanted to just specify what the Aging Societies Committee has been up to and the importance of it in general. So it might look a little bit weird, but it's called ISO TC 314, so Technical Committee. And we are a group of technical experts working in the field of aging societies, and it's covering a very wide range of topic areas. But the main idea is that we need to break away from traditional models, and for that we need innovation. And as Nathan already mentioned, ISO is in a really special place to do that, because we have all the different stakeholders involved in our technical committees. In our case, in the aging societies, we have carers, we have older individuals themselves, we have specialists on dementia, specialists on robotics even. So we have a whole range of different people trying to come together and build some new practices to be the foundation of those innovations. So what we can do in the committees actually set principles. So we can actually say, okay, these are the things that we should be focusing on when we're developing products or services aimed at an older individual, to actually look at what is fit for purpose if you're trying to provide that to them. So not only is that giving benefits to the older person and their families themselves, it is also helping the manufacturers, for instance, so they can actually focus on what can set them apart and be faster in actually putting products on the market, because they don't have to spend their efforts on research on what the basic principles or the basic processes or focus should be for serving an older population. So that's where we can really help. And then it also has benefits, for instance, for carers or healthcare specialists themselves, because they can fine-tune their training and the procedures to be fit for purpose as well. And then in terms of organizations, I think it's really important that we try and find ways of allowing organizations to be more adaptable. So thinking about, for instance, in an aging workforce, what does an older person need in order to remain longer term in employment, which gives benefit for the employer, themselves, because of course we have less risks of knowledge loss. We can have less costs associated with replacing someone too early on in the organization. And it also is beneficial to the person themselves, because we reduce the social isolation by keeping an individual participating either in the workforce or in the community themselves for a longer amount of time. So it's good for the well-being for everybody involved. And one more point that I wanted to make is that standards also really can help here with credibility. So as this might be innovative products that are coming on the market, if you have a standard there in place, it will really help each of the individuals decide which services or products to choose. Because if you can see they're already following certain standards, it builds that trust for them. So that's where we really can have some implications on a global level, and also a little bit leveling the playing field. So everybody can have the same kind of expectations of what a service should look like or a product should look like when focusing on the older individual. And then if you see the next slide, I tried to gather a few pictures actually. Can we just go to the next slide? Thank you. So I tried to gather some pictures here from some individuals that are part of this committee, because standards can feel really cold, but that it's far from that. It is such a collaborative approach, and it's actually quite fun to be involved in these lively discussions because people are really passionate about making a difference. So I just wanted to show you some of those faces. And then on the next slide, I just wanted to touch on a little bit about the priority areas for the technical committee. As already mentioned, it is such a wide range of topics that we can cover that we have to decide where do we begin. So we already have some work undergoing. The green areas that are highlighted, we have already started on. So we have the dementia inclusive work, we have aging workforce standard in place, or under development at least. And then we are also now working on a care inclusive standard. And that's a really important one as well, because as we all start going into even super aged societies, we will see it more and more, even the older generation being caretakers for their parents as well. So we need to ensure that organizations know how to make their systems adaptable enough to be able to allow that person the freedom to care for their parents as well. So that's the work that we're already doing, but you can see that there's 3 other topic areas in the priority that we've listed, and one of those is the multi-generational communities. We felt that this was a really key topic area for us to start developing. But as this in itself is a wide topic area, I wanted to have some conversations with people that have specialization in this area to understand what the standard might look like. And that's actually how I ended up with Ian Spiro of the Agile Aging Alliance. So we started talking, and we actually got really excited because we understood that we have a basis already that we can actually create this standard if we can just harness all the expertise that we have in our wider network, whether that be within the technical committee or within the alliance members, or even the further network of those individuals. And that's why it's really important for us that everybody here is on the line with us today, because we wanted to make this a collaborative approach from the very beginning, get as many possible stakeholders involved in this initial discussion. Because as we were talking, we already realized that maybe communities is not the word to use. Maybe we need to have a more holistic approach. So talking about neighborhoods, avoiding the perception that this might be talking about just a virtual community. We want to involve everybody in that. So it's a well-being exercise for us all. And for that reason, I'm really keen for this event today. I'm so excited to hear what everybody of the speakers has in petto for us, to see what they think a standard in this area might look like. And I would also encourage everybody on the line today to answer our survey, because we're going to ask some questions of you as well to see what types of content would you expect to find in a standard, or maybe something that you have concerns about that we actually shouldn't be covering in a standard. So just opening up those questions to you to allow to give us that feedback, and this will actually be the building blocks of a proposal for a new international standard. And thank you so much for joining us all today on the line, and the Alliance members, the ISO members, and the wider community. And I really look forward to the beginning of the journey, and this will definitely not be the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. That was really interesting insight into ISO, and I think that the important thing there is you see the bigger picture. In fact, it's the bigger picture that Nella, when she first contacted me, used so that I could understand. The point being is, if you know what best practice looks like, you can create a market, and at the moment there isn't a market for healthy aging as a sector, and I think that this is an opportunity to move in that direction. So what I wanted to do to set the scene is to kind of take a snapshot around the world. Now that sounds kind of crazy because we can't go around the world in the time that we have, but I have reached out to a few of our contacts and in time zone order so that some of them can go to bed. We're going to start off in Australia, and we're going to work our way through to the US by the end of the afternoon. So at the next stage, we are actually, we're not actually, we're going to start in Norway.